welcome to another edition of Turned Out a Punk. I'm your host, Damian Abraham. Once again, I'm bringing you a conversation with someone who grew up listening to punk, may or may not still be involved with punk, but had their life changed by the genre in a major way. And today on the show, someone I've known for a very long time, but never had the chance to have this conversation with, from the band Section Hate, from the band Furious Styles, from the band Spitting Teeth. Mike Torres is here, a.k.a. Vegan Mike, a.k.a. Mexi, a.k.a. Mexi Mike, a.k.a. X Mike Mosh X. And this is a fun conversation with someone who's had an incredible journey through punk rock. More on that in 1 second. But first, if you want to get in touch with me, head over to that email address, turnedoutapunkpodcast@gmail.com. That is run by my brother and show producer and normally guest booker extraordinaire, and he will get the message to me. You can also find me, though, on Twitter or Instagram at Left4Damian. The show has an Instagram at Turnedoutapunk and a Facebook page, facebook.com/Turnedoutapunk, I believe. Those are both run by Tristan, and you can communicate with the show that way. If you want to support the show, the best way to support the show is by telling all your friends about it, letting everyone know that we have this podcast that we do a couple times a week. And yes, spread the word that way. You can also support the show by subscribing to it and rating it on your platform of choice that you listen to. You can also support the show by heading over to turnedoutapunk.com and checking out some of the great new shirts. I say great, I designed them, so that's a little braggadocious. They're cool. They're cool. Check out those shirts over there at turnedoutapunk.com for your wearing pleasure. And you can also support the show by heading over to patreon.com/turnedoutapunk and checking some of the stuff that gets put up over there. There's footnotes, there's video versions of some of the episodes, there's all sorts of stuff, all sorts of fun stuff to be found over there at the Patreon. All right, on to, I guess before we get on to the show, I played a band called Fucked Up. We've put out a bunch of new records. A bunch of stuff's coming out. Year of the Horse just came out this week. There's tons of stuff. Epics and Minutes is coming out soon. David Comes to Life reissue. There's a bonus David Comes to Life reissue record. You can find out tons more information about this stuff over there at fuckedup.cc, or you can head to Tank Crimes for Year of the Horse. For Epics and Minutes, go to Get Better Records, and for David Comes to Life, go to Matador Records. And I think there's some other stuff, but that's it. Man, the band, it's churning back to life, slowly but surely. We're going to be playing shows, knock on wood, in the new year. You can check out fuckedup.cc for more information on that, and that is that. All right, on to today's show. Today on the show, from the band Section Hate, Mike Torres is here. Now, Mike is someone who I've known for, as I say, a while now. I didn't know him in Spitting Teeth, his first band, his first band that put out records, but I've certainly known him over the last few years. And so to watch him in the last year or so, last few years, Section Hate slowly build this audience and become this sort of force within punk and hardcore has been really awesome to see happen. Many of you, I'm sure, saw that video that went viral as one of the first sort of post-pandemic outdoor shows where they were playing under a bridge and people are setting off, there's like bonfires and people are setting off road flares. I don't say under a bridge, it's under like a highway freeway underpass type thing. And there's a cop car that drives by with its lights on at one point and probably takes one look and is like, I don't want any of this, and drives off. But that video is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So Mike is someone I've wanted to have on the show for a while, and finally this thing has happened. There is tons of stuff in this one. It's a really interesting episode. He's had a very, very rough life at times. I think that's fair to say. I think he'd even admit that too. And so to watch him kind of come out on the other side and through punk rock and kind of, build this thing, it's very inspiring. Very inspiring episode. Pick up the Section Hate LP, Welcome to the Nightmare, which came out this last year on Flat Spot Records. You can get that thing wherever you get records. It's online, it's on CD, and on vinyl as well. You can also find Spitting Teeth records, as Mike says, in dollar bins everywhere. I think the band's fucking awesome. So grab self Spitting Teeth and check out the musical journey. Also, Mike sent me this band that he talks about in the episode. I don't want to give you too many spoilers, but oh my God. Hopefully at one point, we have a moment where we can finally have the War Scars record come out, because this thing is a monster. Oh, this thing rages. Okay, I'm not going to ramble on anymore. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Mexi on Turned Out a Punk. Vegan Mike, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you for having me.
I really am stoked to have you on here, because I think obviously Section Hate has been kind of like the band, the big kind of discovery for a lot of people, I think, during the pandemic period, and just sort of like seeing footage of you guys and everything like that. But I've wanted to have you on this show for a very long time, because I go much deeper into your discography than just Section Hate. There is you are one of those rare people that have been a part of this thing for a very long time, but also been a part of like very different parts of this thing for a very long time. So really stoked to have you on the show.
Oh, I'm stoked to be on here, man. It's a handful of podcasts I actually like, and this is so thank you for having me. I'm hyped.
Well, that means that's awesome. And we've hung together in real life, but never talked to you about any of the thrash days. So I'm ready to talk about all this stuff today.
That's awesome. I feel like, I think that's something I like the most about this, was that about that. That happened. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of it is, I was talking about this with somebody else, like when you'd hit me up about doing this, and the one thing I said was like, this dude knows about me before the last, like pre the last decade. You know what I mean? Musically and everything, like, not a lot of people piece all of those things together. So like that, that's just, that I had anything to do with any of that shit. So,
well, I think the other thing that's awesome is you and me have both sat under the same hardcore learning tree at the feet of Pete Janess, who is a legendary record store owner. First in Seattle, first in, I think, Vancouver, then Seattle, then Toronto, and then back to Vancouver. But both you and I have bought records from Pete, so I think we also have that shared bond. So we can.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, Pete is responsible for a number. I mean, shit. I mean, him and Steve-O that worked at Singles, Pete's store, and then this dude Byron. All of them had something to do with everything I got into, like in my late teens, because it was like, my first apartment was 2 blocks away from Pete's store. So I would just, I worked at a movie theater, and I would skate down to the store, and like everything was new to me then. You know what I mean? They all, especially like just hardcore, like every aspect of punk and hardcore. Like, I was into basic punk and like oi and all that stuff, and like New York hardcore, and I think that was probably it. Mm-hmm. And then those dudes just got me going on everything. You know what I mean? Like, just everything you can think of. So
yeah, like a real, like, I learned about so much stuff from Pete, like power pop stuff and like, obscure stuff that like I thought I knew about stuff, and then when Hits and Misses moved into town, I was just there every day. Like,
and he's the best dude. I mean, I haven't seen him in 15 years or something, but like, when you're young and like those like age 15 to like 21, 22, like that felt like 30 years. Mm-hmm. It felt like the longest time for me. Like, so all of that stuff back there, I have so many more memories from that time period, and like a lot of it involves the record store. You know what I mean? And like I said, I figured out what you're into. You know what I mean? Or maybe you're into everything. Maybe you're into everything under the punk umbrella, but.
Well, we're going to get to the, these days, but we got to start the way they all start off, which is, Mike, how did you get into punk? Do you remember the first time you ever came across the genre?
Okay. That's always, I mean, I think it goes back. When anyone asks me about this, I feel like it's because of Guns N' Roses. It's because of them. And like I got into like I figured out like I started formulating my own tastes in things when I was probably like 9 or 10 years old, like 4th, 5th grade. where like I stopped listening to like, you know, whatever music my parents were listening to. And I started discovering things that I liked. And I got really into Guns N' Roses. They were really big then, you know what I mean? It was very, Terminator 2 had just come out. Like it was a big deal. You Could Be Mine was like on the radio all the time. And so I started listening to a lot of that. And then like a lot of like the heavy metal radio station. I lived in San Diego at the time. And like there's a metal radio station there. And so I was listening to like, you know, those types of things, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, whatever. And I feel like the first like glimpse into punk was like, I saw Guns N' Roses on Guns N' Roses Metallica Body Count tour in 1992, and I was 10 at the time. And I remember, obviously, they recorded this later, but Guns N' Roses covered the Misfits, and so I was like, what was that? You know what I mean? What was that song? And like Axl was talking about, like, oh, it's going to be on like a punk cover record we do, and I'm like, what? You know, I mean, I knew what punk rock was, but I didn't know what it was. You know, I hadn't figured out a whole lot beyond like that it was this existing thing. And I feel like the Misfits was like, them and Suicidal were the first things I ever really figured out existed. And Suicidal too, because they were like, you know, at the time they were like again, they were on the radio a lot because like Art of Rebellion had just come out, and then like a little bit after that, like Still Psycho came out, where they redid all the songs on the first record. And I was really into them, but it was just because it was on the heavy metal station. So I was like, all right, you know, what is this? And like the Nirvana thing was happening then too. And they would always, you know, you look at, it was back, you know, when you look at like a band's t-shirts or like what bands they're talking about type of thing. And I feel like all of those like really big bands got me leaning that way. And then everything shifted anyway. I don't know, you probably remember this, like, you know, like 1993, when it was like, then Green Day happened, and like Rancid and
broke.
Yeah, all that shit started happening, and like heavy metal started kind of going away, except for Pantera for some reason. And like, you know, first there was like Green Day and Offspring. I remember it was that same year too. It was like Green Day, Offspring, Rancid all had these big records, but like I feel like the first thing where I really was like dialed in on like punk rock and like, you know, things that looked crazy, sounded crazy, was like the Rancid Salvation video. I saw that and I was like, okay, this doesn't look like Green Day. You know what I mean? Like this doesn't look like an Offspring who just look like regular California people. Like this looks crazy. This is not the same thing. It is, but it isn't. It's adjacent to it. But I saw that, I liked that, and I was like, I'm gonna start going that way. Whatever the hell this is, I need to know what these dudes are into. I need to know more about this, you know? And I feel like it just kind of started there. It's all kind of a blur because I was in like 5th and 6th grade.
It's funny too though, that Guns N' Roses tour, that was the infamous tour where they had the ride in Montreal and they didn't play Toronto. So I was supposed to go. But I remember when the Spaghetti Incident came out, my mom found out about the Charles Manson cover on that record and flipped. And then it was like, you know, I was like, oh, maybe it's easier just to like Nirvana.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it was so peculiar to me because like my mother is she's not a conservative type. She's a very like, she's a religious woman. You know what I mean? Like mom was a nun for 9 years before she ever married my father, had kids, all that type of shit. And so my mom has like been like, you know, she's just kind of like a fucking grown up. You know what I mean? Like my mom is like, she's a very nice lady. She's not judgmental. She's not a bad person at all. She just, you know, she just grew up, you know, she was born in 1940 and she just grew up a certain way. She's, you know, and somehow I started fucking with stuff like Guns N' Roses and Metallica. And like, she just didn't read into it that much. She just did, you know, and I thought that was so peculiar because I was like, yo, this music is really fucked up. Like, I am a child and I have no business listening to this, and it's gonna fuck my whole life up. And it did, and it's great. And but it was like this is like this stuff. I was like in hindsight, I'm like, yo, I have no business hearing this shit when I'm like a little ass kid, like. And yet I was all in, you know what I mean? Like that's the Guns N' Roses Metallica thing too. Like Body Count opened, and like could not believe that shit. Yeah. It was the coolest. That was honestly like one of the. I mean, that whole show was that the 3-band show there was the most stacked thing in the world, and it was like And me being like a little kid, I went with my dad, and like, no one else in my 5th grade class went to that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and when you do that thing where you kind of like you're certain you're going to be able to pull this off. So you kind of start telling the kids in class, like, I'm going to go to that. Like, I'm going to do this. And right up until the day of that, I had not figured out how I was going to do that. You know what I mean? I was just like, and I was embarrassed, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna look like a sucker when I like come back to school, and it came and went, and I didn't go. And I remember even the day I went to that, I remember telling my dad, I was like, yo, I feel sick. Like, I want to stay home from school. And mostly because I was just embarrassed. You know what I mean? I had no idea how I was going to get there. And I remember my dad was like, cool. Yeah, that's fine. You look like you're kind of sick. Like, yeah, you should stay home. And I was like, why was that so easy? Like, I shouldn't have been as easy as it was. Like, he should have just told me to fuck myself. But so I was chilling, and I remember he asked me to like hand him something. Can't remember what it was. I'd like pick something up on a table, and I went and picked up whatever it was, and there was tickets to see Guns N' Roses under that. And he had gone and got them and was like, I'm taking you to this shit today. I'm like, yo, that's crazy, And it was such a game changer though, for everything. Like, that was the first time I'd ever really been to like, anything like that. I'd been like, I kissed my parents' ass and like go to like dumb things with them. Like, I saw like John Denver with my mom, and like Neil Diamond, like shit like that. Like, stuff that like, cause I just wanted to go to like any kind of thing, any kind of like event was fun. Everything's fun when you're like a little kid. And after that, I was like, yo, this is crazy. Like, all of this is crazy. Everybody here is a lunatic. Like, I love this. I have to see more things like this. And like, after that, it was like straight through middle school, like up until I was in 8th grade. Like, I saw a lot of things. Like, I saw a lot of shows when I was little. Like, I saw Suicidal. I saw the Ramones. I saw, a lot of alternative stuff. Cause at that time I was into punk and metal and like alternative things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like kind of all of it, like, just cause a lot of it was really popular. MTV was still an interesting thing then. Like, there was music videos and stuff, and like a lot of it was good, and I was just, Soundgarden, things like that. Like, I just whatever I could get to, I would go to.
It also seems like there's, always been decent to good hard rock, for lack of a better term, radio in Southern California, like from Los Angeles down.
Is it not like that elsewhere?
No, like, certainly not like that in Canada. Like, we did have like aggressive stations, but you wouldn't hear, like a lot of this stuff. Like, it's funny. Like, I was just thinking, like, there's no way Body Count was the opener on the Canadian leg of that tour.
It was Faith No More up to a point.
Oh, that must have been Faith No More up here, because there's no way they would have, like, because it's just so like Body Count. I remember when that came out, that was like, front page news even here about Cop Killer and stuff.
That was a big deal. Like, and that was like, I remember like as a little kid, like that was something that really stands out to me. Like, what kind of made it special at the time, I felt like, was it really bothered people. Mm-hmm. Like, it really set the establishment. You know what I mean? Like, just like one song was like, I can't believe you're doing this. You know what I mean? And you get this, like, you get the parental advisory crowd that's like, we're going to put a stop to this, in whatever way we can, and it was like the biggest fuck you ever at that point, like Cop Killer was such, I mean, and it's a whatever, it's a great song. It's just, it's just like a dumb fucking song that's super mean, and like, it really it was such a big deal. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, my mom knows what this is. Like, everyone knows. My mom doesn't know about anything like this, and she knows what that is. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I was like, this isn't that good. Like, you could have the tape, but like, this isn't good. Just so you know, that was that. There was definitely that. I don't know. It was cool.
Oprah talked about it. Like, they did Oprah's about it, right? Like, there was like, it was like, like a huge news story. It's amazing. Like you're saying, like, it's hard to think of something coming out today and having, like, being able to have that kind of impact, like, because it's just, there's obviously we've heard a lot of this stuff now, but also just like, we had such a mass media at that point that just reached everybody. So when something was like turned on like that, it was really turned on.
And I mean, I think that just also has a lot to do with just the world changing in general. Like, there was, there was no internet. There was like, something like this, it was like there was just really two things. There was like, you the radio, and you listen to the music you listen to, and like underground things that maybe weren't on the radio. And then, then there's just like, MTV, and then there's the fucking news. You know what I mean? And then like this and that. So it could be like something like that. It would be like, all right, it's like making some noise over here, and these people over here are pissed about it, and they're gonna all talk about it. The fact that like it's like there's no song today that's gonna be so upsetting that like the president knows about it. It's not like, and it's because everybody knows about everything. Everyone has so much access to everything. You know what I mean? It's just everywhere. Like, and nothing's shocking anymore. Like, for better or for worse, so much more shit is acceptable now than it was then. And even now, it's like, and I don't know. I mean, I feel old for this, but like I do miss the old world. I do miss how it was when everything wasn't at your fingertips. You know what I mean? When you had to really give a fuck. Like you had to look for things. Like there was you had to search for stuff. Like I felt like it meant a little bit more.
Yeah.
At time. No, I mean, to you on a personal level. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I really feel this. That's like why I fuck with it. You know what I mean? Like because I mean now it's like, especially with like musical scenes, anything like that, people come and go. They're like kind of tourists about it, and that's fine. That's okay. I don't care. You can hang out for a week, and that's great. And go be a grown up or whatever. That's what you feel like doing. I'm not gonna judge anyone for that. But like, I just felt like like certain things mattered more to people.
Yeah, well, that I keep looking at that Judgment Night poster behind you, and like that soundtrack. I listened to that thing forever because, that thing cost me like 20 some odd dollars to get. And so when I had it, like I studied that thing. Like it was precious.
It was cool too, man. The Judgment Night soundtrack was really cool because it was new. Like there wasn't new metal. There wasn't rap rock. Like none of that had really happened. Mm-hmm. Like aside from like Anthrax and Public Enemy, Bring the Noise, and like, obviously, like this doesn't even really count. I feel like, but like Run DMC and Aerosmith, but like this like mashing up of genres, like that was such a new thing then, and that was fucking cool. You know what I mean? It was like, and it was like also I remember it was something where like me and my brother could have like a meeting in the minds on, because my brother when we were little, like, you know what I mean? When I was like 9 or 10 and he's like 11 or 12 at the time, he liked rap. That's what he was into. And like most of it, I was just like, oh, this is cool, but I didn't really care about it. And then there were certain things. I remember it kind of clicked with me where like if like you were on the Judgment Night soundtrack, it might be a little cooler. Like I was like, oh, Onyx is cool. Like this is cool because this doesn't feel too far removed from what I already like. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, oh, Onyx and Biohazard, this is great. This is like if this group is fucking with this group, then it must be cool. There must be something that's like, like lightweight fucking punk about it. You know what I mean? There must be something different about it. But I mean, now it's like, I like all of that shit. Every record my brother liked when we were little, I like now. It just took me a little while, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about that soundtrack too. It's like, it's not just big name, obvious people at the time, like there's some like alternative artists. There's even like Del the Funky Homo Sapiens on there too. Like obviously had a major label record around then, but like still it's like,
he was cool. Yeah, Del wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't. He was not Public Enemy. You know what I mean? Like, not the same. And like, yeah, wasn't it like Del and Dinosaur Jr. or something on there? Yeah, that's fucking cool, man. That's like that's such a cool thing. The song's good too. I was listening to it. I still listen to Judgment Night like once a month. Like if I can't think of something to put on, I put that on in the car. And there's some great shit on there. There's some stuff that I don't love now. Like I'm like. I didn't like there's like a Living Color Run DMC song on there that I don't like it that much. I just don't like Living Color, man. I can't get into that. I don't know. It's just
I think that was the thing. It was like a great sampler for both rap and rock music, I guess, because there's so many different artists on there. Like I remember hearing, I think if I'm being honest with myself, that's probably the first place I heard Sonic Youth, and
yeah.
And being like, what the hell is this? And
I heard Sonic Youth kind of on accident. do you remember like Columbia House or like BMG, like when they would send you CD, you would do the sign up for the club thing, you
Yeah.
pay like a penny and they send you CDs. There was a lot of accidental stuff I got in there, or things that I got like just on a whim. Like I feel like I got Sonic Youth through that because of Nirvana. Because like Nirvana was like, obviously, but they would be like, this is the shit we like, or whatever. Or these are people we're friends, whatever it was. I feel like that's how I got that. Like there were certain things like and mind you, this is like 6th, 7th grade. Like, you know, like I got things that they would start sending you stuff based on other stuff you got, I remember. And I got like, you know, I had bought like Helmet Meantime through there. And then then I ended up with Biohazard because of that. You know what I mean? And obviously like, I think maybe I got the Judgment Night soundtrack through there. I'm not really sure. I don't remember, but I even remember how I heard the Judgment Night soundtrack was going to happen was there was an MTV News thing, but it showed Ice-T. It was like Ice-T and Slayer working together on this thing, and I was like, "Yo, that is crazy. That's the craziest thing in the fucking world," you know. And now in hindsight, too, the fact that they just did like a medley of Exploited songs is the coolest thing in the world to me. Like, because I didn't know who the Exploited was yet. I heard the name, I didn't know what it was. I remember seeing like Exploited tape. It was like some sort of like best of or something like that. It had like weird distorted picture of Waddy on the front. And I remember just thinking it looked scary. Like when I was little, I was like, oh, that's like kind of like Rancid, but it looks scarier. Something looks meaner about this. Like I don't know what the deal is. I ended up buying the tape and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is hard. I like whatever this is. Started to figure out that the Slayer Ice-T thing was covers, sort of. They changed the riffs a bunch, but like it took me a second. At first I was just like, yo, what is this like really hard song? It's like, and I remember liking too that I was like, yo, this is just a straight metal song. Like this isn't like rap rock. This is just Ice-T singing hard shit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's fucking cool.
Yeah, I've always wanted to talk to him about, because he seems like he does. He obviously loves like heavy stuff. He did that stuff with Riley and things like that. You know, like he must have been into that stuff as it was kind of happening. You know, like.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I put together. Like, I mean, I feel like the dude is just well versed in things. You know what I mean? He doesn't like so I read his autobiography because my mom got it for me for Christmas a couple years ago, and she was like, I figure you'll like this.
That's a good gift. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. It's such a cool book because I'm like, yo, this dude is the coolest person in the world. Like he just kind of has his hands in everything. Like anything he wants to do, he just goes and does it. You know what I mean? And it like he doesn't feel like he's the type of person who doesn't put himself, like he doesn't feel like he needs to stay in any lane. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of dabble in whatever. As long as you can do it a little bit, then go do it, you know? Be an actor, start a metal band, be a rapper, like do all of these things, you know? And like, I don't know. I was reading that and I'm like, this fool just kind of knows about everything. I feel like, you know, he knows enough about everything, you know, which is it's interesting. Cause like, you know what it is too. It's a lot of like, I don't look at him as like, oh, it's this rapper doing stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Versus like, sometimes when you're like dudes from hip hop, that start fucking with like some rock shit. And it just sounds like it's not natural. Like it sounds like oh, this is what you think this is supposed to sound like, but it doesn't sound very good or whatever. Like then it comes off a little weird. Like I loved Lil Wayne, and then they did the rock record, and I was like, well, this is not good.
But it's so weird how that rock record becomes the thing that's super influential to like Young Thug and like that whole next wave, you know? Like that's the thing I find so fascinating is like it's almost like all these things that come out that are like missteps in our eyes as they're happening. And,
for sure.
But for like younger kids that are hearing it for the first time, they're like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, that's just taste. Everybody's taste is different. You know what I mean? And the way how it's something could be just the first time you've ever heard some shit like that. You know what I mean? It all depends. There's stuff that people love that I can't even figure out what they like about it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'll know, you know, someone that's younger than me that's just like, yo, I think that is great. And I'm like, that's so interesting because I think it sounds terrible, but you know, and then that's what I'm feeling old.
Yeah, because that's like that. Go on, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's how I felt this summer during the Lollapalooza Limp Bizkit thing, where I'm like, oh, we've hit this point where Limp Bizkit now is like all the people that would have been young when they were happening the first time are old enough now to Limp Bizkit's become cool. They've been culturally reassessed to being like the cool band.
which is so odd to me. Like I have no beef with Limp Bizkit, but like
Same.
I remember they were upsetting to me when I was little because like, and my experience with Limp Bizkit, I saw them live before I ever heard anything about them because they did a Warped Tour.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it was 1997, and I was 14. That's all I remember. Is I was 14 years old, so it was 97. And you know, it was like Sick of It All, Pennywise, like Warped Tour 90s shit, and Guttermouth, all that type of shit, and Limp Bizkit. And like I didn't really, I only remember it because they didn't last very long on stage. Like they were up there for like, I mean, it felt like maybe three, 4 songs, and people were throwing shit at them. Someone, I feel like someone stole Fred Durst's Windbreaker. Like I think somebody threw piss at them. Like it was fucked up. Like people weren't, you know, this is in Southern California too, where like Warped Tour world, like that's where, you know what I mean? This is like where Pennywise people thrive. Like people that hated me in high school. Like that was like the enemy when I was a kid, was like skateboard Guttermouth Pennywise people. And this was like their fucking playground every year. It was like Warped Tour is here. Like we're going to go here and be awful. And anything that didn't seem to fit right was fucked. You know what I mean? Like it was fucked. And Limp Bizkit was fucked. This wasn't going to work. And I remember seeing him and I remember being like, what the fuck is this? This kind of rap. I don't understand what's happening. I'm a child and this is just really weird to me. And then, you know, 2 years goes by and I'm like, holy shit, this is the biggest band in the world right now. What is it? Like, what happened here? You know what I mean? Like, because in my head, I was like, okay, we're never going to hear about this again. This is going to, you know, they gave it a whirl and this is trash and no one likes it, you know? And then, you know, 99 MTV, now they're big. So
they always had like a bunch of artists like that where like it would be, they had like Sugar Ray played it one year or like, you know, or
same year.
That yeah. Yeah. And Black Eyed Peas did it one year. Mm-hmm. And Eminem, I think, was the same year. That was a Scarhead year too.
Eminem year, I remember because I went. I feel like it was the year that I think Rancid was on it. Eminem. I'm not certain because these are a little blurred together of these 2 years, but I feel like Ice-T and Suicidal might have been on it too.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just a substantial, like it's a big memory for me because like I was like 16 or something like that. And actually met Eminem at the Warped Tour when I was like a little punk kid. You know what I mean? I looked like I was in The Exploited or some shit. And he was really nice to me. And that's all I remember about it, was he was cool. We talked about drugs. Like I was really into drinking cough medicine and taking Dramamine. I don't know if you ever did that, but like you drink like a Robitussin DM, like a whole bottle of Robitussin DM and take a couple Dramamine and you literally like trip, like your fucking brain takes you somewhere else. Like you're
robo tripping, right? That's what that's what we call it up here.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's basically what they called it here too. And then there was like a pill form of it too, where you had to eat like 30 of them. And then it's totally bad for you. But it was like something that, you know, when I was 16 years old, I was really into because like we get sick of beer and we'd be like, let's do something weird. And I remember talking to Eminem about that when I was like a little kid. And he was real nice about it. And he was like, I got to try that. Like, he's like, I'm going to try that out. And I was just like, don't do it when you're going to have to perform because you're sitting on a couch, fool. Like, you're not going to be able to do anything. And that's my only interaction with that person ever in my life. And it was a pleasant one. So I kind of fuck with him because of that.
That's awesome. I think Black Eyed Peas were on that one too that year.
They might have been. Like, I mean, I was not actively like able to see, you know, everything. I had somehow had like a soft spot for Eminem then because of this. I feel like I was like, it was a weird time period where me and a couple friends used to live in an attic of this house and with this weird family that just let us live there. And we were like little kids, like 16 years old, something like that. And technically homeless. So it was like, we lived in this house and there was like the brother of the family was like just this weird guy. And he really liked Eminem. So I remember like hearing it a lot. So I feel like I saw him like twice that year somehow live, just because of like this dude. He was like, we're gonna go see Eminem. I'm like, all right, you know, like that's fine. But so I feel like I watched him on purpose at the Warped Tour. And obviously like Ice-T, Suicidal, Rancid. But you know what it is? You can't really go see everything because there's like, you know, sometimes there's two things happening at once. You got to look at the schedule and just kind of see what you really give a fuck about. So like Black Eyed Peas, stuff like that, I didn't care about it, you know. But
You bring up also a good point, like or an interesting point I find when you talk to people from California is that, like, or just in general, the geographical differences about the way stuff's taken up. Like, so that Epiphat stuff, like it's jock music in the like sort of mid '90s. Where here it's like definitely much more underground. But from when talking to people in California, like that was definitely like what the asshole jocks would be blasting.
It was like the best way, like when people talk about like their high school experience, and you have like the version of it on television where like the football team beats you up or whatever, like that type of shit.
Mm.
When I was in high school, I only went to regular high school for probably about 4 months. And it was like right out the gate, like my first day, like, I get called a fucking faggot by somebody. Like the moment I get to high school, I've been there for 5 minutes, and it was like a gutter mouth Pennywise guy. And that was like a type of person, like beach people. Like they rode skateboards, they hung out at the beach, and they didn't like real punks. You know what I mean? I mean, for lack of a better term, like actual punk rockers, they just thought, yeah, you and the goth people and everybody else were all fucking losers, and they hated all of us. And I didn't really know that, I didn't know it till it happened. Like like from age 13 to 15, I was in a facility for bad kids. I lived in the middle of the woods for 2 years, and you weren't allowed to really couldn't have music. You couldn't no connection to the world. And you're like 30 miles from any civilization. So I didn't know about stuff. Like I knew about like middle school. I knew about things. Obviously I started going to concerts and whatnot, but then there was like a whole 2-year period where like, just like real, like social things. I didn't really know about anything. And I wasn't my experience, I'm in this place where you're like not allowed to fucking date girls or even touch them or even like, so like natural teenage things, you like just are completely like banned from your life. So I don't know about anything. And there's only like 100 people in this place. So it's like, there's no subculture allowed. So you don't know, like everybody just kind of gets along with everybody because you're just there in this fucking place. And for the most part. And then I go to high school and I'm like, oh shit, like this is a type of person, and it's like punk adjacent, but it hates me,
Yeah.
And what's funny about that though, is those types of people fucking love me now. You know what I mean? Now I'm old, and they're like, oh, you're like, they think I'm cool or some shit. And I'm just like, you and your friends would have beat me up in high school for sure. Like, no, would have hated everything I'm into, but whatever. I don't know. Growing up is weird. California.
Yeah, well, it is like a real California thing, like where this stuff is, Tony Molina brought up when he was on the show, like the difference, the power violence on the West Coast versus the East Coast, where it's kind of like nerdy music out on the East Coast in the '90s, where it's like, and it's real music, like street hardcore music out on the West Coast at the same time, right? Like, same way, it's like the differences between like the way like these bands are seen, where here it's like there's not enough kids. The Bullies definitely didn't like they were listening to the Tragically Hip. They were not listening to Pennywise up here. So
right.
It's fascinating how it's just like differently, Another thing also I wanted to talk to you about, you mentioned going to that Suicidal show right out of the gate. And I've always heard from people coming on that San Diego's like even crazier than LA for violence in the 80s. Had that kind of subsided into the 90s for shows like that? Like that show?
So that one it was weird. So it's 1994 that I saw first time, but they were on tour with Metallica, so it was a metal show. But it was out. They played out in it was basically like, I guess it's where this like amphitheater is now, but at the time it was just like a private plane, like tiny airport out there, and they built a stage in the middle of the desert. And so it's out there, and those types of people were there, but like I didn't understand them necessarily. Like, like all the suicidal thing was definitely a thing. That was a thing even with like when I was a little kid, like when I was a teenager. Like, I mean, and like, there are people from that group of people that I get along with great now. But like when we were little kids, it wasn't the same. And it was like, that's actually a big thing I remember, because I lived in Oceanside, which is like North County, San Diego. And there was a suicidal clique there. And they were older. They're like 30 years old or some shit like that. And, we were 16 years old. And our little group had like punks and skinheads in it. And they don't like skinheads, it seems like, historically. That's a thing, which we got into it with them, especially like up in Oceanside. Like if there were shows there, like we would get into it with them then, you'd be drinking beer with them and then they would like jump you and like weird shit like that. It was very odd. And, you figure it out by like stuff like that happening to you. Yeah. It's like, okay, well now this is what it is. Cause this dude just fucking punched me or hit me with a bottle. So like, okay, that's what this is. And yeah, I mean, and I know like, in LA was a different world. I would go up there, but I didn't live there yet. Obviously I've only lived here for 12 years. So I didn't live there yet. I would just visit, especially for like shows and things like that. And yeah, I do remember it being very fighty. Like there was a lot of like, a lot of drunk shit and a lot of people getting into it. And it was like that. And it was a little, it was unsettling. Like even just all through the 90s, I feel like, the 80s, everyone makes the 80s sound completely insane. But like, how I feel about any of that stuff is I'm just like, you're always just going to make it sound crazier because there's no proof that it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like I read a lot of books about it now. Like now these books are coming out, like fucking Disco's Out, Murder's In. And like I bought another one recently that I haven't jumped into, but I like flipped through it. And I'm like, I remember reading that book and it's, there's like, it's basically like, it's based around like a certain like punk gang from the 80s. And then the other ones are in there too. But it was like, the punk gang that's based on is like, we were the baddest motherfuckers in the world and these dudes weren't shit and blah, blah, blah. Like, and I'm always like, that's just like, that's just the perspective you're going to have if you're the one writing the book. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be the baddest motherfucker ever. And I feel like that's how it goes for anyone writing a book or a script or like anything about something like that. They're going to, they're going to be like, yeah, we were the biggest. We had the most dudes and we always won and this and that, like whatever.
Well, you're writing your own history, right? Like that's the thing. You got to make it as rich as possible.
For sure. I think it's funny. Some of it where I was like, there's like a part in that book where they're talking about how the dude who like was talking about stabbing this dude that was like riding by on a scooter, just stabbed him and he died. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true, man. Like it sounds because like you just admitted to a murder in your book. And I think that's a little bit weird. That might not have happened, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe it did. Maybe fucking, maybe he's just flagrant as hell. He doesn't care. I have no idea. But I feel like, yeah, like there's always like, everybody has these stories. It's also up to the interpretation of the people looking at it. Like I can see some terrible shit and it doesn't like do anything to me. Like, I don't think it's even like, I'll just be like laughing, and I'll like some horrible will be happening like near me. And I'm maybe just so used to things being crazy or whatever, like, or having been crazier another time that I'll be like, oh, that's not that crazy. Like the interpretation of things by individual people is really so interesting to me. I had something like that recently because I was at a show here, and this is like this month, and it's some kid like threw somebody on the ground that I knew, and I went over and I was like, don't do that. Like we're not there's no fight. We're not doing that. Like be good. And I fucked up. I like went and looked on Twitter because I just have a band Twitter now and that I fuck with. And occasionally I'll like search I'll search the band name or something like that. See like, is any, they may say any nice stuff, whatever. And this kid was like, dude from Section 8 wanted to throw hands because I threw his homie on the ground. I'm like, that is what you got out of that? Like that's so different than what. And like I was like, you went all the way home thinking about this. I like told you to knock it off and then went back to my little corner and kept watching the band. Like I didn't even think about it after that. Yeah. And I'm like, and this person like left the show and went somewhere. I'm like, yo, that was like a whole thing for you. And like literally, I'm like, I don't want to fight a person inside this record store that has shows at all whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But mostly, like, I was just, yo, man, I kind of saved your life just then, bro. Like you're some, there's a bunch of little 20-year-olds here that might want to impress somebody that are just going to fucking beat the shit out of you, man. Like, I don't want that to happen. I don't want none of this, nothing. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. And that's all like, it's interesting. Like the interpretation that people have, where they'll be like, it was fucking mayhem all the time, dude. And I'm like, that show wasn't even crazy. Like, what are you talking about? This shit wasn't like that. I don't know. It's weird, man. So who knows? I mean, like, Southern California, when I started going to things, I think a lot of it all seemed scary to me because I was little. Yeah. A lot of it was that I was going by myself a lot of the time. I had like one homie when I was like 11, 12 years old that was like also into punk too. That was like a grade older than me. And we would go and, you would get fucked with and picked on. And like, that was huge in my head, but it was probably nothing to whoever was doing it. You know what I mean? And I was sitting here like, am I gonna get beat up? Like, what's gonna happen? I'm 12. Like, I don't really know you're like a little spooked by everything. And yeah, I mean, I get, it doesn't, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was crazy or really or not, maybe, I think it's all up to the interpretation of the person, how old they are, whatever, what they think is no big deal. I don't know.
So what was your first like actual punk show? Cause you mentioned like, you're into all this stuff, but at a certain point, like you go punk, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say like, probably some of the first shit I saw was like, there was a record store kind of near where I lived when I was a little kid in like North County, San Diego, and, like middle school, probably like 6th, 7th grade. And they would do like local punk shit. So I feel like I like probably some of the first stuff I saw like that was like they would like a record store in store by some local band. Like I don't really remember much of that. I mean, let me think. Like when I was by the time I was about maybe 11 or 12, I feel like I saw Rancid, and I saw like when I was 13, I saw the Ramones. That was one. There was a local band, the Ramones show. I remember there was a local band that opened that I feel like they were on like Deep Six or something like that, or one of those labels. But this band called The Neighbors, who's
yeah.
Do you remember them?
Yeah, I remember they've got. I can picture the LP. I think I might even have it, but
right. Rips. It's amazing, but they were just this weird phenomenon because like to me, I was like, yo, The Neighbors, like they're just like a local San Diego band, like I think it's cool, but it's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, and then I remember it kind of like when I got older, it somehow got kind of adjacent to stuff I was into in my late teens. And I was like, yo, that's weird. I'm like, I saw them open for the Ramones. Like that's what I know about them. And they're just really fast. And it made sense to me, but I remember thinking that was weird. But I remember seeing them when I was little. God, I'm trying to remember.
Was Blink going yet?
Blink, I don't believe I saw. I mean, I'm sure they were.
Yeah,
but I saw them. I never really saw Blink on purpose, but they were like a really big local band. You know what I mean? And I think by the time I was like 14, I think they were on Warped Tour and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I feel like or at least at the very least, were like playing that one because they were from there, or whatever. But they were probably. I mean, I feel like by the time I was in like 13 or 14, maybe they were, what's it called? When did Dude Ranch come out? I feel like it might have been around then.
Yeah, I guess that would have been like 97, 98.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I was like, they were pretty substantially big then. I did see them, but it was never really on purpose. You know what I mean? And like, like as a 39-year-old adult now, like I totally like, but like, I back then I definitely secretly thought it was kind of fun. I liked the way it sounded, but I was like, I ain't telling nobody this shit. You know what I mean? I'm not telling obviously like by the time I was in my 20s, I was like, oh yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like this shit's fun,
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw them, and I would see them too. There was that venue in San Diego, Soma, that's been around for fucking ever, in different incarnations. The 90s, like they would do this New Year's Eve thing and they would rent out the San Diego Sports Arena. Like it was huge. And it would be something like that. Like, and this is probably when I was about 15. It was like, I remember the year I went, it was like Blink played, but then like Strife played also. Like it was everything. You know what I mean? It was like everything that was like kind of that caliber of stuff. And it was like a stage on each side. And it would just, you go to one side, then you go to the other. And it was like, that was just where you went on New Year's, and even if we were like, oh, we're super fucking punk and we don't really like this shit, like that's still where you went. And I don't know, I'm trying to think. Yeah, first punk shit.
Fluff's from San Diego, right?
Yeah, Fluff is from San Diego. Same shit. I feel like I saw them, but never on purpose. There was a lot of like, just, you start going to shows, you start going to everything. You know what I mean? You start going to shows because they exist. And it was like anything that was like adjacent to that, to punk or anything like that, I would try to go see. And like I said, like the second I turned 13 though, everything got put on pause. So I wasn't back until I was 15. So I didn't from like 1995 until 97. I did come home to visit. And that was when I went to that Warped Tour with like Limp Bizkit and Sick of It All and all that. Mom got me a ticket for it because the same shit. She was like, I think this is something you'll like. And you're home visiting from this like bad kid school where you're not allowed to do anything fun. And I went to that. I remember I went to Warped Tour. I was 14. I went by myself. It was very weird because like I was just rolling around solo. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody. But yeah, there was like a pause. There was like a whole pause in my shit there where I didn't get to do anything or listen to anything. Like I really didn't. Like we smuggled a Rancid tape in, and that was the only thing we had. Was Rancid Let's Go. So that was like the only thing I liked for like a 2-year period. And most of the stuff, I did get into a lot of shit while I was there, but it was because like I made a friend there who I'm still friends with, my buddy Joe, and he's from New York, and he really was putting me on to like what was popping over there for him. But it was all just conversations. Like I didn't know what it sounded like. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, when I got out of there, it was like, what is the Casualties? Like, what is Blank 77? Like Warzone? What are these things? Because I've been listening to you talk about them to me for 2 years. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go get all of this. And I mean, I loved all of it. And, you know, it's a wrap. That was it. But like, but for a long time, it was just a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Joe was, because you know, mentioned, you know, I know you know that Joe was the drummer. He was the drummer of Spitting Teeth, the second drummer.
Yeah. Okay. It must be so fucking crazy, given your relationship to Let's Go being the only record that you had for that time period for a while, given like Tim Armstrong repping you guys so heavy now and being involved with you guys.
I mean, that's just homie shit. I just had dinner with him before I came here. Like, that's my guy, man. Like he lives like 5 minutes away from me. And, you know, we met under like non-musical circumstances. And just as far as like me personally, like having, you know, substance abuse problems and what have you, and not drinking and not doing drugs like that's sort of how, you know, that's how I know that dude. And then, you know, you start hanging out and then you start becoming better friends and this and that. And then it becomes about music, because obviously we both like that shit. And, you know, we kind of hit it off eventually over time because of like, oh, we like a lot of the same stuff and this and that. And yeah, now now it's just like, you know, like he's, you know, he did a song on our record, like me and him wrote it together, you know, this and that. And it was, and I mean, that I was giving him a ride home. I was like, yo, you want to sing on the record? And he's just like, yeah, yes. He's like, I just, you know, I would love to. And it was as easy as that, you know, but that's just my guy, man, you know? And, it is weird though, because it's the type of thing where it's just like these people that you grow up thinking are like larger than life. You know, they're like out of reach. I met him when I was a little kid. I met him when I was 15, and he was real nice to me then. So I was like, okay, this ain't that far out of reach. Whatever. But you know, fast forward 15 years, 30, you know, 20 fucking whatever. I can't do math. Fucking 20 years. 15 years. And now, you know, and now we're friends. I don't know. It just, you know, the world is crazy. You know, doing music with him was cool though. That was big. You know, it still feels crazy to me because it's like, even if you're friends with someone, even if you guys talk on the phone every day or go get lunch, you know, do regular shit, when it's like, yo, we're about to do a song together, that's crazy. Like that's a crazy thing for me. Even like, yo, this fool painted this Section H shirt and wore it at the LA show. And I was like, that is still crazy to me, even though we hang out all the time, because you're still doing that while you're up there doing this whole Rancid thing in front of all these people. That's crazy to me, you know?
Yeah. No, it's wild. Like it feels like this is the genre where you can make that happen, you know, like, you know, if you'd stayed in metal, I don't know how easy it would be to be collaborating with Metallica. You know,
yeah, it is definitely like, you know, because even with these bands that are like, you know, quote unquote, like legendary or big or old or any of that type of stuff, dude. I mean, they're still regular people. They still go to shows. A lot of them are still around. You know what I mean? Especially here. You know what I mean? You go to a show here, and there is almost no separation between like artist and audience. You know what I mean? People are around, and people like music, and people that live here are going out and going to shows and supporting things and being a part of it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'll go to a show and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I played, our old band, the band we were in, a bunch of us were in before Section 8. We played with a couple shows with Discharge, whatever version of it. And I remember like I met Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses there because he was just at this Discharge show, like because that's what he likes. You know what I mean? That's so sick. Like you're like a full blown rock star, but like you're not at all. Like you pull up when the opening band is playing. Like me and him chopped it up because he was talking to me about how he liked our set. Like that we played first. I'm like, yo, this dude pulls up early, watches every band, and like you don't have to be here. You know what I mean? Like, especially now, like you're a fucking, you're playing, you play in stadiums and you don't have to be down here doing this, but it's what you like. And that shit is cool to me,
Yeah. Well, that's like the whole gimmick of this podcast is the fact that like, I think everyone that was like actually into punk is always got that, like always retains that somehow in their soul where you can just, as long as you bring them back to talking about punk, they'll want to talk about music or something. It's something that we like, I don't know. It's something weird that draws us all to it and then stays with us for life, no matter how hard we try.
I mean, could you imagine not doing this? Like not being into it? Like what else is there? What like that doesn't like I still, if it's possible, I go to like 3-4 shows a week. Like I still hang out all the time because it's fun, because it's never got boring to me, and I'm more tired, you know what I mean? Like I'm sitting in the back, or I'm like, find a little spot in a corner where like no one will run into me or whatever. But like, if I even sort of like something, I'm like, yo, I'm going, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to watch this band. Like I'm pissed off because fuck, dude, Halloween, I was supposed to go to one show and now I found out that we're playing another one, which is a really big, crazy thing we're doing on Halloween. But I wanted to go see Nothing because they're playing this Halloween show here. And I was like, that'll be really fun. And I like those dudes as people, whatnot. But then we're playing, it's funny, we're playing with Chief Keef on Halloween.
I saw that show got announced. I
was like, yeah, we got to go do that. Like that, like we have, like that is like massive and cool and weird. And, I love doing stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, we can't do the other one. But I'm like, fuck, is there a way I could do both? Like, can I go to maybe jump, go do this, play this show, leave and go over here and watch this? I mean, I'll do shit like that. I try to like, I love this shit, man. It's so fun. Like it really is. And like, I hit a wave, a little phase where I turned into like a piece of shit bar person for a while when I still lived in Washington, where I was like, yeah, this is cool, but I'd rather just like get drunk and do coke and fucking, sit around at some shitty bar, like in someone's fucking living room. And it's just like, but that was very short lived. You know what I mean? I was like, all right. And then I moved to LA and I just got right back into it again. I'm like, okay, this is why, because the Northwest is weird. Like I was there for 10 years and it's sort of cool and it's sort of fucking terrible. It goes through, it goes through phases. Like there was a point where like, I was having a really good time and I thought for a while that it was like, I was like, did I outgrow this? Did I get tired of it? Like what happened here? And then I'm like, no, it just kind of fucking sucks now. Like it sucks here now. Like the cool people have grown out of it or gone away or moved somewhere better. And then there's like there's not really much of maybe a younger generation of people. And like, then I came here and I was like, okay, it's popping here. This is what I want. I want to go to shows every.
Do you think it was like all those .com kind of tech, Starbucks, Amazon type things moving in there that changed the culture?
So I missed that. Like I got out before that happened. I mean, obviously the Starbucks based there, but like the whole like the tech thing and the Amazon thing that happened after I moved. So I would go back and I was like, oh, this place. I mean, I thought it sucks when I was here. This place fucking sucks. Like I'm the type of person where like I really ask what to do. I just go back to what's familiar. And like I went back to the area I hung out in, where like the places I liked going to were at, like where my friends worked and this and that. And I was like, where is everybody? And everybody's like, oh, no one hangs out up here anymore because it sucks now. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that was weird to me because it was like, it's still kind of, it looked the same-ish, I guess, but I guess there wasn't really nobody hanging around. Like I remember I remember the day I moved to Seattle. Well, I didn't move to Seattle. The day I landed there and just was like, I got stuck there when I was 17 and just, I didn't leave for 10 years.
How did that happen?
Okay. Okay. So my friend I was telling you about earlier that I went to the bad kid school with, that was like telling me about all these bands and this and that, and like really shaped a lot of the stuff I got into after I got out of there. This is when we still, we still had landlines and everything. And I called him when I was maybe 15 or 16, and we're all back home now. And he's back in New York and I am in San Diego. And I'm talking to him on the phone and he starts telling me about like, oh, I'm thinking of moving to Seattle. And I was like, okay, that's cool. He's like, oh, I know some band out there that I'm friends with. They played out here, whatever. I'm probably going to go there. And I was like, cool. And then I just didn't talk to him again for, what felt like a year, but who I don't really know how long it was. And at that time I wasn't living at home. I was like living in this weird attic, and or like just sleeping on rooftops or just doing whatever. I just did, things weird. Home got weird and I wasn't there. And I ended up back at my mother's house because I got my head cracked open by a grocery store employee. After my friends stole some shit. I got pulled out of a moving vehicle and busted my head open. And they were stealing. I never went in the store, but they caught me somehow, even though I technically had nothing to do with it. I was just with those dudes. Whatever. So I get held. I ended up getting arrested. I got arrested for curfew. They held me there and they're like, oh, he didn't actually steal anything, but it's past 10 p.m. So we're arresting you. And I was like, I don't live at home, whatever. And they finally were like, well, your mom needs to come get you. I'm like, well, my mom's not going to come get me because she doesn't want, we don't talk. And they finally they're like, well, we're going to drive you, an hour away from where we are and drop you off at your mom's house. And they did. They dropped me off my mom's doorstep with like blood all over me. My head split open.
They haven't taken you to the hospital? Nothing at this point.
They didn't do anything. I was all covered in blood. They dropped me off my mom's house.
Holy fuck.
And they, whatever. I'm back there for a second. And like, my mom was like, well, obviously, like, we don't get along, whatever. You don't want to be here. I don't know if she wanted me there or not. It's hard to tell, cause I mean, I was not an easy kid to be the parent of, I don't think at that time. And she was like, is there anywhere you would want to go? And I was like, well, I remember Joe said he might be moving to Seattle. My other little homie I hung out with had met another punk rocker that was in the military that was stationed in San Diego. They hung out for like a week, and he was like, oh, I know this dude, and he lives up there too. And my mom was like, I'll buy you a Greyhound ticket if you want to go up there and just, get out of here for a while. I was like, cool, that's awesome. So I just hopped on a Greyhound and went to Seattle with no real plan. And I get there, we meet up with the kid that my friend knew, and then this other dude was with him. It's another like punk rock fool. And I asked them, I'm like, yo, do you know a new dude named Joe that's from New York? I think he moved here, maybe. And they were like, yeah, we're going to his house. There's a party at his house right now. We went there in like 30 minutes. And that was it. And then, yeah. So I got there. I go see this dude. I hadn't seen him in 2 years, which, when you're a teenager, that's like a decade. And yeah, I just like fucked around, like stayed on his couch, lived in a car for a while, just did all that for a minute and I was there. That was it. I was like, all right, I wasn't stuck in Seattle. I just didn't plan on, there was nowhere to come back to at the time. You know what I mean? It was like, now I'm here. I'm going to make this work. And I did, for 10 years. And that's just where I was at.
Yeah. So how did you start playing music?
I started, I mean, I learned, I got a guitar when I was little. I have a musical family. My dad played country music and stuff like that. And like, my mom knows how to play the piano. Everyone in my family knows how to sing, like actually sing, like, well, you know what I mean? Like even myself, but I just choose to yell like a fucking idiot. But,
that's for record 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Hit some fucking notes.
Exactly.
But, yeah, dude, I got a guitar when I was like probably in fifth. I think I was in 5th grade. Originally, like I was going to do piano lessons. I did like one. I'm like, yo, it's whack. Like it was just a whack instrument to me, which now in hindsight, I think that's not true. I think it's very cool. But a little kid, I want to be a rocker. That's fucking bullshit. Like piano's bullshit. And yeah, I started doing band. Like I think the first bands I was in, I had like a little kid high school band when I was like 15, probably. And then I played bass in a band. My brother played like he was into like ska and reggae and like stuff like that. And he had like some skinhead friends. And I played bass for this band. It was like all of my brother's skinhead friends and 15-year-old me, for a little bit. We had a couple of our own stuff. We played like some parties. Like we had a couple of our own songs and we like covered The Last Resort.
Oh. That's
we
awesome.
Covered King of the Jungle by Last Resort. That's like one thing I remember. And I was 15 years old and I was like, yeah, I'm like in this band with these like kind of like, well, I thought like scary dudes, and whatever. Like, and like, I feel like they maybe put like an American flag on my bass, like just some bullshit and bullshit. And, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I started doing band stuff then. And then like, when I got to Seattle, like I was still like, I was still like a fucking bum. I was still like sleeping outside or like in a car for a while, all that type of stuff. And I joined a band with one of the dudes I met that first day I got there. That was sort of like for like lack of a better description, I would say it was like, something kind of like Os Rotten, like that type of stuff. Like,
yeah.
like slightly grosser, but still adjacent to the Casualties punk stuff, and I played in a band with it. I played guitar for this band for a little bit. I think I only maybe played 2 shows with them. And then I was like off being weird homeless guy. Like, you know what I mean? I kind of disappeared on them. And then I started sleeping in the kitchen of this apartment of this dude, Neil, and this other guy. It was like a 1-bedroom apartment. Neil lived on like a futon in the living room. This fool lived in the bedroom. Me and my like homeless fucking girlfriend lived in the kitchen, like most of the time, on just you sleeping wherever you could type of situation. Mm-hmm. And the guy in the bedroom ended up getting annoyed with everybody being there, and he moved out. And I moved in there, and the dude I lived with, that dude Neil, me and him started Spitting Teeth. That was the dude that sang for that band. Okay. So it kind of started then. We started like, let's do a band. You know what I mean? Like, because we are around each other every day, and we sort of like the same shit, And I said I was probably the first band I did that like did anything, was that one. Like did more than just play 3 shows and then not have a name, like whatever. So
well, in hardcore terms, you guys did a lot. Like that's the thing. Like most bands just put out the demo and that's it. If you get to the first 7-inch, but to do like a few 7-inches, and especially Havoc Records at that time was like, that was it. Like that was the sub pop of our world.
Yes, it was very it was huge to me. You know what I mean? Because I was pretty young then. I think I was probably like when the Havoc 7-inch came out, I feel like I was maybe 19 or something like that, and that was like massive to me because of like exactly what you're saying, like Havoc and 625 and like those two especially. Like I was just buying anything and everything from that world, and like especially before, like when I still lived in California, like I was a massive Destroy Code 13 guy. Like I was just a Felix Havoc fan, so that label was a big deal to me. And you remember what it was, dude? They had everything good. They had like everything good was coming out through them. And I mean, I will say I don't have a lot of regrets, but I think my biggest regret was like us just being completely unable to put out like a good, I would say not a good record, but like a good. We recorded it in a fucking kitchen, like it was fucked. Like our homie was like, I have fucking, sorry,
no problem.
Like I have Pro Tools or GarageBand, whatever the fuck it was. I can record your band, and I was like, awesome. We don't have to go to a studio. Like we could just do it here. This will be fine. And it was like, and I got the shitty amp, and I couldn't really get to have a distortion on it. So I remember it was like, I listened to it now, and I'm like, dude, it's like Templar's tone. You know what I mean? It's like, which works great for that, but like was not what we were trying to do. Like, I mean, we were just so we're the ultimate fuck up band. You know what I mean? We pull up to shows, like local shows where we lived, and we pull up to like a touring band and be like, we didn't bring any gear. Like we don't even have, I didn't even play my own guitar. Like we just were so shitty. We were just so bad at being a band. And like, I wish the record on Havoc, because it seems to be the one that appears all the time, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like go through it's a total, like, it's the ultimate dollar bin record. I feel like it's like, oh, there's the fucking Spitting Chief Havoc, like it's just fucking everywhere. I still see it all the time, and I'm like, fuck, dude, like I wish this was better, but you know,
I think I think that's the thing about Havoc too, is like Felix pressed so many of those records that, yeah, like our most visible 7-inch is definitely the Litany Havoc pressing, which
yeah,
is, you know, it's like in every store ever, because Felix, that was also, like, you look at his pressing histories of some of the stuff, like that Osron single, like, what is it, like 15,000 copies of that he pressed?
do you remember how fucking important that record was though? When I was little, that shit was like, dude, I mean, at the time I was like, Osrodden was this like very important thing. And like, you know what, they were like a total gateway band. If you were like a spiky punk fucking idiot, like drunk punk guy, then you heard that and you were like, maybe I should care about stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, that was like, all right, I like the Casualties and I like Blank 77 and these other, like, these New York bands and all this shit. And then it was like, and then like, they play with this band Osrodden, and I started listening to that. That was like my gateway into a bunch of things. You know, that record was so important. I still listen to it sometimes now. Like Fuck Nazi Sympathy, I listen to that shit like probably like once a month. Just revisit, just go on YouTube and listen to it or some shit in my car, and I'm like, yo, this shit rips, dude. This shit was good. And it was like, now I'm like, yo, that shit, people still care about that, and that's cool. You know, that's it really was. And it's like the sloppiest, shittiest songs ever, but people give a fuck about that. You know what I mean? And that shit was important, and it really was. Like, that was like my, you know, I got into that. And that was kind of what got me looking at like Havoc Records, you know what I mean? Like, was like something like that. And then I was like, okay, there's other things here. Like, what is, you know, and then that was like Code 13 was happening at the time. And then like, you know, I knew some, you know, started knowing more like crust punk type fools. And I'm like, okay, what's Destroy? Like, what is this shirt? The artwork looks crazy. It says burn this racist system down. I want to know what that is, you know? And fucking whatever. And then, yeah, it was like Osrodden was like the full gateway band into like taking shit more seriously. I felt like, you know, like musically, and like, I don't want to hear any more songs about beer, you know?
Did you guys play with Caustic Christ ever?
Yeah. We did, we played Chicago Fest the same year that they did. The one time we did that.
We played that year too, but I think we played on different days, I think.
Yeah. What year was that? I think was that the third one? The third Chicago Fest?
It was the one after the really nuts one where like No Justice played. It was like the very calm one in the huge hall.
Really nuts one that was, it got shut down during Gordon Soley motherfuckers.
That was the year before, I think, right? Did you guys play that one?
Did I skip a year? Okay, because I went once. Me and Neil from Spitting Teeth and this other fool flew out there. We went to Chicago Fest, and I believe it was Chicago Fest 2. I think it was the second one. And it was the year that like, it was, you know, Life's Halt played, Gordon Soley like shut the fest down, Felix Havoc went to jail, and Dave from Tear It Up, they both went to jail. Trying to remember what else. Like it was, and I saw a video recently of the Gordon Soley set, and I was like, dude, it was so crazy when I was in the middle of it. And like, I watched the video of it now, and I'm like, this is just, we were being stupid. This isn't even that crazy. Like, the crazy thing I saw was like, I saw a kid hanging from a chandelier like a cartoon, like in a cartoon. Like, I was like, yo, you don't actually hang from a chandelier because it's not possible. You know what I mean? But this guy was small enough, and he was like swinging on a chandelier, and I'm like, yo, I've never seen that in real life before. But it was crazy. It was cool, but it just, you know, it was like out of college, I remember. So they were like, shut it down, you know, and all these cops came, and then they moved it to like somewhere in Chicago that just, I remember it was just the hood, because we're walking, all these people are walking down the street to go to this little like basement that said that they would let the fest continue there. And I think it lasted for like a couple songs or whatever band was playing. It was over after that. I remember like walking through, and people just hanging out their windows, just looking at all. I was like, what are all these people doing here? Like, what are kind of like, yo, like, what are all these white dudes doing here? You know, like that type of shit. Like we looked and felt very out of place there. And I'm not really even sure where I was, but I was a teenager then, and never been in Chicago before. But whatever year that was that Caustic Christ played, because that must have been 2 years after that. I don't know. Time is weird back then, you know?
Yeah.
Feels the year after, but maybe it wasn't.
I think it was the year after. I think it was. The next year was the year that we played and you guys played, and Felix did the glass cover version of the 7-inch.
Yeah, the one that destroyed the record.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the one.
the one that he didn't put the record in a sleeve, so it just wrecked. It just destroyed any record. Yo, what's fucked up about that? Like when I went out there for that trip, I was like, I'm gonna stay and someone stay a couple days. I like had a relaxed trip out there, and then Neil, our singer, had to fly back like immediately after we played. And I remember like giving him the leftover, like our box of glass cover records, like which was like a bunch of them we got, I think, to take home to some people. And I was like, you take these back to Seattle. And it was like this. I just remember him having to like walk really far with like the world's heaviest box of records and just looking real miserable. And I don't know. I mean, I didn't care at the time, but that thing was crazy. I still have one. I mean, I have all that shit. I never got rid of any of it. It comes up sometimes though, like the glass cover thing, because it's just like such a weird thing. It didn't even look particularly cool. It was just like a good idea.
Yeah, like it was definitely the height of, like post Charles Bronson metal sleeve, ridiculous cover in hardcore thing. And that was like, he also did one that was like a spray painted sleeve of some sort for like a Regulations LP.
Okay, yeah.
But the spray paint warped the records.
Good. Good. All right. Great. I actually, speaking of Felix doing like nerdy bullshit like that though, like I got something from him in the last like year or two that he did like a stupid cover for again that ended up looking really cool. He reissued a old Dysphere record and it had like a metal like tin cover. I was kind of hyped on that because I was like, this just reminds me of when we were younger. You made these things just to make the record weird. And it was like those like, so one of the, I can't remember which Dysphere record it is, but it's like one of the first 2 or 3, like it's pre Thomas Lindbergh, like when they were kind of a better band. And yeah, I don't know. I'm glad to see that he like hasn't really changed at all and just is doing stuff like that. That shit's cool, man. I like stuff like, I like weird records like that. I like unnecessary covers and shit.
I also remember at that show, I saw 1-2 Go Crew perform. The guy that you went up doing the split with. At the time, I remember being so bummed out. Now I'd like to see it as a more mature person, and I'd probably maybe have a different perspective. But at the time, I remember being like, and I loved your band. And then I was like, when you guys did the split with him, I'm like, oh, why are they doing a split with this guy?
I don't even really remember how that happened. Like we met the dude and he was nice, and it was
super nice.
I was like, okay, like he was like, oh, I don't remember like really whose idea that was. Because that was like, we did our first record. We did it with that label. Well, it was a label. It's the record store 1 2 3 4 Go in the Bay in Oakland. It was when it was just a record label. The first thing they ever did was put the first Spitting Teeth 7-inch out. And then the third Spitting Teeth 7-inch was that split with 1-2 Go Crew. And I feel like that maybe might have even been like Steve, the dude that owns the record store. It might have even been his idea. Like, I don't remember. I would never have like known or thought anything about that was like, I was neither here nor there. I was like, what the fuck? Like, kind of like, what the fuck is this? And like, especially at that time too, like I was also like, I'd stopped being straight edge and I was like, I am doing drugs the second we're not playing. So like, whatever we're doing, cool. I'm outside getting drunk and falling over or whatever and being a child. But I don't know. That was what's funny you say that. What kind of sucks about it is I felt like the Spitting Teeth stuff on there was like better than the others. Like the songs we did were better.
Yeah.
I wish it had first, like I wish those were on the Havoc record that's fucking everywhere. So I could be like, oh, I had this band when I was a kid and it like isn't totally terrible.
The first 7-inch is awesome. I even like the Havoc 7-inch too, obviously from the time, but I can see what you're saying. Like it doesn't feel like the record you want to be your most distributed record.
For sure. I mean, it's also just like, I just chalk it up to being like little kid fucking, like learning experience shit. Yeah. Like you're supposed to get better at music with time. You're supposed to get better with, so it's like, I'm like, we're writing these things when we're like fucking teenagers, you know what I mean? And like, we're like, oh, we really like fucking What Happens Next and like, fast things and this and that. And like, well, let's start our own band and, do something kind of like that. And we were still figuring out what the fuck to do. I'm also like not a good guitar player at all. Like, not good at all. So I'm still not good. That's why I don't play guitar in my band because I'm just not very good at it. And because I write everything, like even the band I'm in now, I write everything. I write all of it. Every note of every single song is written by me. And then I show it to someone who knows how to play. better than me.
Yeah.
And they play it fucking great. But like even then it was just like, yeah, the songs were weird, you know, they're fast and dumb, and it was just, yeah, it was fun. It was definitely fun. We also just played every show, you know. It was like it was more of a like Spitting Teeth was more of like a thing in the city we lived in, as far as like the recordings are one thing, but it was like, it was a live thing. It was like because we would play with anyone, and we kind of had a bit of a following amongst like our little group of young friends. So like we got asked to play all the time. Like we played with anybody you can think of, we played with, you know. And so like even back then, like I have all these fond memories of it as far as like playing live. And then I'm like, fuck, I wish these 7-inch were fucking better, but you know, whatever. I had another band then too. We did a demo, and we were really into drugs at the time. Like I just started fucking with like coke and speed and stuff like that, and it just kind of fell apart. And we only probably played like 5 or 6 shows, but it was like sort of like basically like, I mean, for lack of a better word, it was like kind of like skid system worship, like a little.
That's awesome.
I'll send it to you. I have it a Dropbox with the whole thing in there.
I want to hear that. Yeah,
we'd made this demo, and I gave it to Felix, and he was like, "I'm going to put this out. Like this is fucking awesome." Blah blah blah. And that never happened, because it was just done. And that's the one I was like, I like. We were still doing Spitting Teeth because we were just doing it, but I was like really into this other thing because I liked like, you know, skid system and drugs, and this was like perfect. This is what I wanted to be doing. Yeah. And I wish that had fucking circulated, because that shit rips. I listen to it now and I'm like, yo, we were really onto something here. Like this was good, especially for how young we were. We were a good band, but then we played like 5 shows and broke up. So
how did the thing with 1 2 3 4 Go Records come about?
That was from okay, so my second or third place I ever lived, like my third house I moved into, I think I was like maybe 18 or 19 at that point. I lived in this house full of nerds, fellow like it was like a house of punk nerds. Like for real, like it couldn't have been a nerdier house. So it was every single member of Cold Sweat except for the drummer.
That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. Sean Dean and Nick and Evan, who was also in Spitting Teeth. We lived in this house, and then Byron and Steve-O that worked at Singles. So the entire staff is Singles besides Pete. And then these other 2 dudes, and we all lived in this house, and it was just like a conversation, you know, like Steve was like, I'm going to start a record label and I want to put out your record. So that was like, that's how that started. And then 1 2 3 4 Go was just like a label, and then it was a store. And now it's like, I still go there. When I go to the Bay, I pop in and like talk to Steve, and, you know, if he's around and this and that. And, you know, we still chop it up every once in a while. And yeah, it was just like, I don't know. It kind of like happened at the same time. Like, I'm going to do a record label and your band is perfect, you know? So that's like how that happened.
I love that record store. Every time I'm out there, what did I get there last time? The Dynamo 7-inch.
Tight. I always find good shit there, man. They seem to just get everything there. Everything seems to end up there. And then like, I remember one of the last things I got there too. They did like a collab thing with Green Day, and like had some shirts there. And I bought like a weird Green Day shirt there. Cause like weird, like Green Day, like Oakland A's shirt. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was cool. So I like love Green Day. As an adult, I'm like a massive Green Day guy. So I always kind of was, but I really am now. Like, it's weird. It's like my taste got super juvenile as I got older, where I like went full circle back into being like a little kid again. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I spend more time listening to like And Out Come the Wolves and like Green Day, Insomniac, and earlier probably than and then like Slayer. That's like what I listen to in my car a lot of the time. So
well, it's positive music, you know. At the end of the day, it's like, you know, it's music that makes you feel happy. And like, you know, I still love all this negative stuff, but I was listening to Operation Ivy a lot recently, and I'm like, this fucking rules. Like, you know, and it's not even that much ska. Like, that's the thing I really took away from it. It's like they are way more a punk band than a ska band.
Operation Ivy was the first. So I bought 4 records like vinyl. The first vinyl I ever bought. Well, Operation Ivy Energy was one of the 4 first things I ever got. Mm-hmm. It was Operation Ivy, DRI Dealing With It, an AC/DC record, and a Black Sabbath record. Those are the first 4 things I ever got. So Operation Ivy is always going to be, I got a soft spot for it forever. And like, you know what trips me out, man, because it's Los Angeles and you just see shit like this, is I was at this Rancid show, the recent one. And then like Jesse Michaels lives here too. So I see him like walk by and like, we're like friendly enough to give each other a nod at most. Like, I don't know that dude. You know what I mean? He's not like my friend or anything like that, but he's just around.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking, I'm like, dang, they're like almost all here. Like all of this band is here right now, except for one dude. Like, that's so cool to me. Like, I mean, they're never going to play. That'll never happen. You know what I mean? But like, because I know that, you know, it obviously comes up, but I don't think that'll ever happen. But it's still cool to me because I'll just be like, oh, yo, it's Operation Ivy right over there, all together at one time. Like, that's so sick to me. I don't know. That shit's good, man. I revisited it again recently too. And it's still like, yeah, that shit's good. I'm still more partial to Rancid though. Like, as I got older, I think the first Rancid record is so good. Like, I think that's like an unstoppable record. It's so fucking, it's so weird sounding. You ever think about how weird Rancid is?
Yeah. I think about that a lot. I think about the fact that like the first 3 Rancid records come out like a year apart. So you think about how many songs they wrote, and also including some, like, they had some great comp and B-sides around that period as well.
Yeah.
It's like they were machines, and like talking to Lars, and they said they would roll up to shows, set up in the van, and start writing songs before they sound checked.
Dude, I think about the fact that Let's Go has like fucking 19 songs on it. That's crazy. That my band doesn't have 19 songs at all. 3 things out now. We don't have 19 songs at all. We get up and play. We play like 8 songs and then we leave. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, dude, that's so nuts to me. And that's like the fact that they were all different and they're all bangers is fucking crazy to me. Like, I don't know, man. Armstrong's a writing machine though, dog. Like, that dude trips me out, man. He is working on music every day, all the time. That's all that fool does. So I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? I'm not built the same, certain people, that's their deal. That's cool.
I couldn't imagine getting out of a van with your band and being like, all right, let's write some shit. Like, having we sat in this van together for the last 6 hours.
For real. That's what I think about. I'll be like, we're getting out of the van. I don't want to see you motherfuckers for an hour.
Run.
Yeah, dude, I'll be back in a little bit. Is like, that's me, like, that's so strange. That's cool though. Whatever, man. I mean, there's got to be something to be said too about a band that's basically been the same lineup for that long too, and they still like each other. Like, they're fucking friends. You know what I mean? They don't live in the same cities, but I've been around them together, and I'm like, oh, you guys are like, I was at the studio one time when they were writing stuff for this new Rancid record. I was there one day, and I was like watching them work together, and I'm like, this is not like any band I'm in. This is not the same. Like, you guys are writing this whole thing together. You guys are having fun, and you all like each other while doing it. There's no like butting heads happening here. This is really, it's just interesting to see. You know what I mean? Like, and I guess maybe for me, because I'm more of like I'm like an Iron Fist, like band asshole type. Not asshole. I'm nice, but like I'm like, this is how the songs go. Like, I wrote these. Here are the songs. Learn them, type of shit. You know what I mean? Like the current band I'm in now, it's like it's basically like the way I write. Our drummer and me live together, so we, demoed like our LP. We basically, I'm playing him on a practice amp, and he had the drum set up in the living room. We just recorded it on a phone, and we're like, that's the song, and like, here, this. Some of them, even when we were making this album we just did, some of it, I was working at a weed shop at the time. I was guarding weed shops at night. So I would park my car in front of the front door of this, and I would rob it. I'd fall asleep for like 8 hours, and I would bring my guitar to work with me. So some of the songs, like even on the record that we just put out now, I wrote like in my car at the weed shop. And like, the day we were going to start recording the record. Like, I'm like, I got this fast one. This is a real short one. It goes like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, and then boom. And then it's a fucking song now. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't operate the same as some of these other bands, I guess. It's just interesting to watch different dynamics like that.
I'm fascinated by their band dynamic, you know, and how they operate. Cause like it is a very closed off camp, you know, like they were just at Riot Fest and, you know, like, you know, and like, you know, no disrespect to them. Cause like I've, you know, obviously know Lars and have talked to those guys a bunch, but you know, it's like Rancid is Rancid, you know, and there's like a Rancid culture and like they had their own little, like their part of the backstage was like them and their dudes, you know, like it's a family.
I think especially like for me personally, like, and my perspective is different because if I'm there, I'm in there. I'm over with that group. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna go hang out. I'm hanging out with those dudes, you know, and seeing that. But I can see that. It's I mean it's a big thing. They're just, I don't know. You know, just my whole thing with them, man, thank God they're still good. You know?
Yeah.
Like the last album they put out was great. It was really like, I was like, I saw the cover of it and I was like, oh, they used the first album logo on it. Like, yo, that's kind of something's up here. Like, this has got to be, I bet this is going to be really good. And I listened to it. I'm like, yo, shit, Rich, you guys still, like, I still got it. You know what I mean? And there was a record in there I didn't like that they did. But other than that, there was like one in there that I just thought was okay. But can't remember what it was called because I don't listen to it. But like that last one I fuck with a lot. That shit's hella good. But yeah, I'm curious. They got another record coming out soon. I'm curious what that's gonna be like. I heard them fucking around with some stuff because I was there one day, but I don't really know much and I haven't heard any of it. So I'm just, you know, fingers crossed. I'm sure it seems like I still got it.
Well, we've been talking for a long ass time and I don't want to keep you all night. So Mike, know that anytime you want to come back here, the door is always open for a part 2.
For sure. This shit is fun. This is like, that's what I like to do, man. I want to talk about music with people. You know what I mean? Like this is fun to me, you know, fucking there's like other podcasts too, especially like no disrespect to anybody else, but it's like, they, you know, it's the same topics. It's the same stuff. People about the crazy show that we played in May or, you know, stuff that people know about or like what has happened in the last 2 years of my life. And this is way cooler. I don't know. I like this.
Well, like to me, it's like, you know, as cool as it is, like that, obviously that crazy show in May, you know, like one of the craziest hardcore shows ever. That's going to go down in history as like one of those shows, you know, but at the same time, to me, it's way cooler to find out about this house with you and the guys from Cold Sweat and the Singles Going Steady people. And just like, cause that to me is like, that's fucking awesome. Cause like, you know, obviously I think Cold Sweat's one of the great bands, like one of the great unheralded bands of our time in hardcore.
Oh yeah. And Sean Dean was a maniac. He's a maniac, dude.
The greatest ever.
I still talk to him sometimes. So like, you know,
please tell him I say hello.
I will for sure. We get in touch like maybe once a year. You know, I said when Section 8 first started, I sent him. I'm Evan, the bass player of Cold Sweat. I remember he like ordered a couple tapes that we had. I remember at one point, one of them was for Sean. Like we all kind of keep up with each other a little bit. And like a couple years back, Sean sent me some like weird shit he was up to. Like sent me a package full of like strange things, like some other stuff. He's a strange guy. You know, I don't know where he is right now. I feel like he might be in Florida because I bumped into him in Texas once. But that was, now in hindsight, I was like, that was when I was like in that band Furious Styles. We played in Texas and he came to the show and I saw him there. And I don't know. I kind of wonder where he is. I think last I heard he was in Florida. Maybe. I don't know. He's a strange guy. I was pissed off that they played again when they did that Iron Lung Records thing and they played it.
Yeah.
I didn't figure out that was happening until like a day before. So I would have definitely traveled to go see that again, you know, just because I mean, I saw Cold Sweat 200 times, but I'd like to see it.
Yeah, you want to see him now.
Yeah. I mean, because now it's all just like nostalgia for me. It's all stuff I remember, you know, being 20 years old, you know, and you don't think that you're going to, you don't think it's that big of a deal. You know what I mean? Like, especially then too. It's like when we were, we shared members, we would play together. We lived together, all that type of stuff. And, you see it all the time. You're watching them in a pizza place with 50 people. And so it's whatever. And then you're like, oh, this shit was like pretty important,
Yeah.
Now, after it's gone, and it is cool that they got together and played again. That's pretty awesome. They tried to get Spitting Teeth to do this. Someone tried to, for 1, 2, 3, 4, go, try to get us to play again. And it was a conversation. And then it was like, dude, nah, man. Like, I'm like, I don't even fucking know. Like, nah, I don't remember when it was. It was like an anniversary thing. I remember. I feel like it was like fucking whatever, like 15 years of 1, 2, 3, 4, go. I feel like they were like, and I know they did a show and there was like stuff. We were supposed to do it. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. We just didn't end up doing it.
There was a couple years, I guess, after Spitting Teeth, like literally a couple years. It's like when you have like Cold Sweat and I guess Sex Vid would be going, and it feels like that scene really picks up. Like there's like obviously historically there's a lot of great bands out of there, and stuff like that. But like it felt like there was a mass of, great stuff coming out during that period.
Dude, Sex Vid, I always forget about them. I forget about them for a little bit. If I go to Seattle, I bump into fucking what's his name, RJ.
RJ, yeah.
And he had that record store. I would poke my head in there sometimes and just, occasionally like I'll get like a weird DM from him or something. You know what I mean? like in theory, we still know each other. That band was fucking good, man.
Yeah.
All that. There was a lot. Yeah. There was a lot of very weird shit happening in the Northwest. Hold on a second. Yeah. Can you shut the fuck up? There was a lot of fucking there's a lot of cool shit happening up there. And again, it was just shit that you're just doing in passing and you're just having fun and doing whatever. And it seems small. And then you look back on it and you're like, yo, it trips me out when people be like, oh dude, you like saw this band? I'm like, yeah, I saw them a million times. Like you don't think it's that important when you're doing it. You think it's your own little world and it's like this big. And then 15 years later, it's like some sort of like legendary thing or some shit. I don't know. Music's weird. It's all very.
Well, yeah, because bands can never be measured in terms of like, album sales and all this sort of stuff. It's impact that the bands have. Like Operation Ivy, man, like that band is inspiring people for generations. They broke up before that album even came out, and that thing's still inspiring people.
That's so, yeah, that stuff like that is crazy to me. Like things that are just massive and legendary like that, even going back in time, all the way back to like something like the Germs or something like that was around for like 5 seconds. You know what I mean? A couple years, but whatever, you know what I mean? Like one album. And I'm like, I still listen to that shit like once a month, like 30 years after hearing it the first time, you know what I mean? And like, and it still sounds good to me, and it's still like, we were talking about the Germs today because me and Tim were talking about it because we were talking about I can't remember what it was. Bela Lugosi came up. I'm like, yo, he's buried at the same place as Darby Crash, and sometimes I just go there and look at the graves of people that I think are cool. Wow. Like it'll be like the death anniversary of Darby Crash, and I'll be like, I'm gonna go to the grave because like someone will be hanging out there and it'll be interesting, or like one of the homies will be like drinking beer there or some shit, and it'll just, just weird shit like that. I'm like, yeah, those things are huge. They're so huge to me, and so important. And you're like, it was just like a flash. That shit was there for a little while. Then there's other stuff that just never goes away. There's other stuff that just goes on forever, like like Suicidal or something.
I was going to say Suicidal Tendencies. Look at them.
Suicidal is just fucking forever. Doesn't I don't love the lineup they have right now, but I'll still go see them. You know what I mean? If it's happening and it's convenient, like I'll go watch them or something like that. It ain't the lineup I want, but that's okay.
It's just amazing how some of these bands are able to. And obviously, like Rancid's a better example as far as like be able to keep it together where it's still like the same people and still get along. Because when you're in a band, you're like, how am I going to be around these people for more than 6 minutes, let alone 6 years or.
Yeah. And a lot of it is just the type of people that they are. You know what I mean? It's like dude, I mean, I don't know if I can ever be in any band for a very long time because like a lot of times I'm not the easiest person to get along with, and I have like a short fuse sometimes, and like I've gotten better, but there were bands I've been in where like I've had bands where like members quit and then they come back because they're like, oh yeah, we're friends, but like I wanted to murder you for a while, and you know. And then I see something like a band like that where I'm like, dang, these dudes are really like, they don't even be fighting really. Like that's really crazy to me. But I mean, that's just different people. It works sometimes. Sometimes it just works. And even sometimes something like that, like a band that's big enough, the dynamic, like they can live in different cities, you know what I mean? And then they come together and they get to work. And then they go back to their own lives and whatnot. But yeah, it is cool to see some bands that just last forever like that. And it's basically the same band. I don't know.
Yeah, or like Roger and Vinny, you know, being together for that long and just like the understanding they must have for each other to be able to be around each other like this.
Dude, I mean, that shit is sick. I love that. That's fun, you know, especially like AF, like, okay, yeah. I mean, I love them. They're those first couple records are like some of the most important things in the world to me up to a certain point. I always listen to the new stuff they do, and I'm like, oh, there's some parts, there's some stuff I like here, but it's not really it's basically like, you know, like Europeans like it. I feel like mostly it's more like European music, if that makes any sense. But I'll go see them live no matter what. You know what I mean? If I'm like, I saw them play This Is Hardcore when we played, and I fucking loved it. You know, I'm like, yo, still cool to watch live. It's still cool they're doing it. Still cool they don't hate each other. You know what I mean? Like these dudes are working together and doing this music thing, and they, you know, yeah, I don't know, trips me out. It's pretty sick. I mean, sometimes there's a dynamic like that. Hold on a second. I got a bandmate right now, Ryan, that I played. He was from that band Product of Waste, and he plays guitar for Section 8 also. And then the band I was in before this, he was also in that. And so me and him kind of like, we were talking today about it. It was like, if I'm doing a band, I'm doing it with you. Like we're gonna keep doing stuff together because it works. We start something new. It's like, all right, well, you're playing guitar, right? You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of goes without saying. So I definitely, you know, I would say like, especially with that dude, like I have that relationship with him where it was like, if I start another band after this, I'm gonna probably want to start it with that dude, you know, or it's hypothetical. Say, you know, maybe we keep doing this band for a long time. I don't know. We'll see, or it just falls apart. I have no idea. But whatever, see what happens.
Well, I'll tell you what happens. You come back on this show whenever you want, my friend.
Yes, I will. I will. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mike, for coming on the show. And you heard right there, Mexi will be back for a part 2 at some point in the near future because there's a lot more to discuss. And speaking of future looks bright for Section 8. Check out this band. They rage. And speaking of future, in a few short days on this show, we go back to the very beginning of punk rock. See, there's a lot of debate, probably not outside of, well, there is debate outside of the show, but a lot of debate on this show about where punk starts. Where's the origin point of this thing? And you know what? I've felt this thing in my mind for a long time, but after doing this interview, it's confirmed. It really starts with Jane County. She is truly the first punk rocker in that New York scene. Like before anyone else is up on that, she's already doing that stuff with that At the Truck record and all sorts of amazing stuff. Like Jane County, I feel, is one of the most underrated people in rock music. Like why isn't Jane County in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Like this is a person who needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is a person who participated in Stonewall, was part of Andy Warhol's factory, made all these incredible, you know, really challenging plays and pieces of theater with all these incredible legends of just progressive, aggressive theater. And that's all before she invents punk rock. This is an interesting one. I'm very excited for you to hear this episode. Check out Jane County's music. A lot of it is listed under her old name, Wayne County. And you can find all this stuff on streaming services, buy the records, because this is truly one of the most underappreciated artists to ever come out of punk rock. And anyway, I ramble on about all this stuff next week, but it's fresh on my mind right now. All right, that is it. Remember, as always, Black Lives Matter. The lives of Indigenous peoples matter. We need to protect trans kids. We need to help trans people protect themselves and stop hate and violence towards people of different faiths, people of different races, people of different... Just stop all that shit. Just knock all that shit out. Because these things, people's freedom to exist in this world without hate and racism and just oppression and all that stuff thrown on them, that's not political. That's just like a human rights thing. Someone's choice of what they want to do with their reproductive system, that's not a political issue. That's a freedom issue. That's a freedom of choice issue. And that's what this show is all about. That's what punk's all about, is just finding a way to live free. So if there's organizations doing work in areas that you feel need support them. Get involved. If there's a demonstration coming up in your community that you feel very strongly in favor of, go. You will not regret putting your voice behind something you believe in. Speaking of doing things, putting your voice out there, create your own culture. Anyone can do this stuff. Start a band, start a fanzine, start a podcast. Like, it's obviously requires a certain amount of financial stability and startup to kind of do this stuff at first, but anyone can do this stuff. And I think that's the problem we have now, is because we have all these tools at our hands, in our hands in the case of cell phones, if you have a cell phone or smartphone, and it just becomes overwhelming. So just try and make something. You don't have to show it to the world. Just show it to your friends. Make you feel better mentally. Speaking of feeling better mentally, try meditating. I didn't believe in it, and then I tried it, and it works for me. This is much a reminder to myself to do it as it is to anyone else. But if you're wondering, should I try this thing? Try it. Why not? What's the worst that can happen? Anything that's like a self-improvement thing, if you're like, shit, should I try this thing? Why not? It's not going to hurt you. Worst thing that happens is it wastes 10, 20 minutes of your time. And sometimes it takes a few times to get used to something, like going to a gym or meditating. So go easy on yourself. Let yourself come to it, but try it. It can make your life a little bit better. Right now I'm trying to learn how to play guitar, and it is crushingly hard. Way harder than I thought it would be. And, but it's worth it. So I'm going to keep at it. This is also me reminding myself to keep at it. Sign your organ donor cards, because when they come looking for those organs, you don't need them. Just sign them and get it done with. Stay safe right now. I know I mentioned at the top post-pandemic, and I shouldn't have, because there's no post-pandemic. We're still in it. So, get your shots, be safe, and I will see you on the other side. Thank you for listening. Bye.